everybody. Today is December 3rd, third day of Advent. And so we're going to be talking about Genesis chapter 3, verses 8 through 15. And just to give you some context, if you're not super familiar with this story, God, He was in the beginning. He created everything. God created everything good and perfect and right. And then He created man, who is like the pinnacle of His creation. It was the best part of His creation. We were created in God's image. But then God gave us some rules. And one specific rule was don't eat from this specific tree. And guess what man did? We ate from that specific tree. This is what happens right after Adam and Eve disobey God. It says, then the man and his wife heard the sound of the Lord God walking in the garden at the time of the evening breeze, and they hid from the Lord God among the trees of the garden. So God called out to the man and said to him, where are you? And he said, I heard you in the garden, so I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. And then he asked, who told you you were naked? Did you eat from the tree that I commanded you not to eat from? The man replied, the woman you gave me. She gave me some of the fruit from the tree and I ate. So the Lord God asked the woman, what is this that you have done? And the woman said, the serpent deceived me and I ate. So the Lord God said to the serpent, because you have done this, you are cursed more than any livestock, more than any wild animal. You will move on your belly and eat dust all the days of your life. I will put hostility between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He will strike your head, and you will strike his heel. Wow, so much going on here, but there's a couple things that I want to draw your attention to. The first part is this question, where are you? And then where Adam says, I was afraid, so I hid. So these things right here. We were created to be in relationship with God, but because of our sin, it separates us from God. There's something between us and God now. And so here's a question. Where are you hiding from God? Is there something you think you've done that is too bad for God to forgive? There's another piece to this, and I'm sure you guys have never done this, but for me, there's been times in my life where I'm confronted with my sin, I see my sin, and then I go and blame shift. I'm like, yeah, but it was so-and-so's fault, or they made me do it. Again, I'm sure you guys have never said that phrase. But right here, because the weight of our sin is too heavy for us to carry, we try to get it off of us and give it to somebody else. But ultimately, it's our sin, and we have to bear the consequences of that. But this last part I want to talk about is the piece of hope. So we just get done talking about the first sin and the consequences and how terrible this is. But then God does something crazy here. In his curse to the snake, he gives a promise. This is talking about Jesus coming. Even though Jesus will die, that's what it's talking about here where it says you will strike his heel. Jesus ultimately comes to beat sin and death. That's the striking of the head. Jesus came to take away the shame and the fear from our sin. Jesus came to take away the burden of our sin that we keep wanting to blame shift. Jesus came for us, and this was God's plan all along. From the very beginning in Genesis chapter 3, God is talking about how he's going to make things right when we messed it up. So why are you thankful for Jesus? What's the sin and the weight and the shame that he has lifted from you? Think about it, talk about it, journal about it, and thank Jesus specifically for how he came to save you. And if you don't know Jesus, you don't have to stay here. You don't have to stay in this state of just being ashamed and afraid of God. You don't have to stay here where you are blame shifting and just trying to get the weight of what you've done wrong off of you. Jesus came to take all of your sin on him and make you right with God. And all you have to do is acknowledge that you're a sinner, accept that gift, and follow him with everything that you have. Love you guys. Grace and peace.